Yo, what's going on, guys? It is Daniel. Welcome back to the YouTube channel Tech Tuning. In today's video, we're back to some Toyota content, where today I'm going to do my best to walk you guys through doing an EGR delete on your 22RE Celica. Now, doing this is a little bit different than some of the other cars because mine's an 85, which means I have the EFI fuel injection system, as well as the fact that I have an electronic distributor. Some of the older models that are carbureted and some of the original 20Rs, 22Rs, they use vacuum advanced distributors. Now, this doesn't have that setup, so this whole process, it should look pretty similar, but I don't know the way the vacuum advanced ones work, so I don't know if this is going to be different on the older models, is the point I'm trying to get to. At least in the scope of the 84 to 85, this is a pretty simple mod to do. But the thing is, there's really not much purpose in doing this if you're planning to keep your car all stock. The only reason I'm doing this is because I really want to clean up the engine bay. The blockoff delete kits are only like $25 depending on what site you go to, and it's honestly something you could make yourself if you even wanted to. It's just cut out metal to cover up the EGR stuff. And the purpose of this is basically just to clean out the engine bay. We're going to get rid of a lot of vacuum lines. We're going to get rid of the little vacuum tree, the EGR. Going to make a little bit more working space for ourselves in the future. And I'm just thinking it's going to make the engine bay look a little bit better, which is something that I personally enjoy in a car and I want to do for my Celica. But yeah, I've never done this before. I don't know much about it. I watched one reference video and it looks pretty straightforward, so I figured we'd give it a go for as cheap as it is. And I'm hoping it'll make my engine bay look a little bit nicer. So yeah, looking at the bay, there's just a lot of rubber lines going on, and you can go crazy and really get rid of a lot of this stuff if you don't care about some of the performance of it. I've put some tape on the main things that we're going to be working with, which is going to be this little vacuum tree, which is mounted to the side of the valve cover. This is something that we're going to remove, as well as the lines that go to our whole EGR system over here. So if we go over to the passenger side, you'll get a better look at what we're referring to. The EGR system is mounted here at the back of your intake manifold, as well as the back of the head. It's a little tricky to see, but you can see right down there, the base of it, there's 3 triangular oriented bolts that they connect the bottom of this to the side of your head, and then it routes itself up and it goes to the back of the actual intake manifold here. If you guys can get a whole look at this system. And then we just have a plethora of vacuum lines that run between that up to this little controller right here. And then that one runs down to here to the tree, where we have some that come over to your throttle body. And then we have more that go even further down here. Some of these we're gonna have to loop in order to keep things functional. And you're actually gonna need a couple of little block off things right here if you're not gonna loop these as well. It really depends on how you wanna do it. The main purpose of what I'm just going to be covering is going to be the removal of the EGR system, the removal of the primary vacuum lines, as well as the installation of the block-off plates. And the idea is kind of to just document a good before and after of how the bay looks. For the main part, we're going to be focused on this side where we have a lot going on. I'm thinking the smartest thing to do first is going to be taking whatever lines are easiest to loop and just looping those. I'm looking at these 2 that come out of the top of the vacuum tree right here. These both run to the throttle body. I don't know what their actual functions are. I haven't actually looked at many vacuum line diagrams, but what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take one of these lines, I'm gonna loop it from one end of the throttle body to the other. That way we can remove both of them from here. And I'm gonna do the same thing with this one down here. This one is just 2 lines that come out right at the end. I'm gonna take those, and they both run to this little thing right down here. I'm gonna loop those as well. If any of you guys that have experience with this know what some of these are, please shoot it down in the comments, because for all I know, I'm looping systems that could be really important, but we're just gonna keep going with it. So like I said, we have this one looped, and then down here, we have this one looped. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move to this back section here where everything seems to be pretty well clumped together. I don't believe any of this goes to anything else externally. So we should be able to just disconnect the bolts that are holding our EGR together and then disconnect the vacuum tree connectors right over there. We are going to start with these 2 bolts right here, which connect to the back of the intake manifold. These are just going to be 2 12mm bolts, and we're going to want to save these because we'll need them to reinstall our block-off plate once the whole system is out. All right, so we have those taken out. What I'm gonna do next is move on to the 312s that are down below at the bottom. It is tricky to see, but you can see this triangular shape. If you look up, that goes to the top of this EGR valve here, and that whole thing connects from the bottom of that headpiece to the top of the intake manifold, like I was saying before. So we're gonna get those out as well, and then hopefully the whole thing should separate pretty easily. Alright, so as you saw, that was not without pain, but I managed to just use a flathead screwdriver and pry it off. Hurt my fingers a little bit, but it's off. So what we'll have to move on to next is going to be taking out the vacuum tree. The tree is right here, and this is what all the lines run to. So you can see if I move around the EGR, the lines go right from that to here, and they also go to this thing up here, which we'll have to take that off afterwards as well. The tree is going to be a tricky part though. We've got this one down here, which goes to the manifold connection, and then we have another one which goes under the thermostat, which you should be able to get to if you just go through the front. Those should also be 12mm bolts. So if you can see the setup I've got going on here, I managed to run an extension underneath the throttle body past some of the other lines and got it right onto the bolt that we're trying to take out here. It's a little tricky to see because there's just a lot going on, but I was able to loosen it all the way like that. So we're just gonna finish taking that out. So I've got it out, but it's a little tough to slip the entire tree out. So I took pictures for reference in case I ever have to put this back in, but I'm gonna disconnect these 4 lines and hopefully slide the tree out the front. So we've got the entire vacuum tree out as well as the EGR system. What we can move to now is the next 12mm bolt right back here on top of the valve cover, and we can take out this little thingy and the vacuum lines associated with that as well. All right, and we are looking really good. As you guys can see, there's just way more working space right over there, and it's making the top of the valve cover look cleaner. Of course, we still have all of these lines over here, which you could do something about if you choose to, but the next step that I'm gonna do is we're gonna prepare these 2 surfaces that we've just opened up for the block-off plates. So I'm gonna take a little X-Acto scraper and clean up the surfaces, being careful not to get anything into them. We can then use like a spray and a wipe to clean them off, and we'll put those plates back on. One thing you do definitely want to make sure that you replace also before you put those plates on is you're going to want to put the bolts for the vacuum tree back in, because that bolt for right here at the front and that nut for in the middle on the stud right here are actually part of what holds our intake manifold to the motor. So you definitely want to make sure you replace those. Just something quick to note. So the surfaces are cleaned and prepped as best as I can really get them. I used a scraper to get off any excess gasket material, and then I went back through on both of them with a shop towel and some brake clean. So I'll show you guys the block off plates now and explain how we're gonna seal it back up. So these are the plates that come with it. We have the 2 primary EGR ones, and then we also have 2 for the exhaust manifold, which are for the air injection. My car didn't come with air injection, so I'm not worried about using these, but I'm gonna keep them to the side just in case I ever change the manifold or the manifold gaskets, because these look a lot nicer than the block-off plates that are already on there. So for today, we're just gonna be using these 2. Now, normally they come in just like a raw primered steel. I did spray them with just some silver spray paint. They're not that close of a color match to the manifold, but I'm not really worried about it. I just wanted to get some layer of paint on them so it wasn't just open primer. I have the RTV gray silicone maker that we're gonna be using in order to actually reseal these back up. Some people do sell gaskets for this, which you can use, but I didn't buy those and they didn't come with mine, so I'm just gonna give it a shot with this, and it should be more than enough sealing power as long as we let it set up correctly and give it time to dry before we really tighten everything down. Now, the instructions for the silicone state as such that you should cut the nozzle of this and you should lay the silicone on, and while it's still wet, what you want to do is put the block-off plate on, thread it in until it's finger tight and you see it squeezing out the edges, and then you want to leave it for an hour so that it can tack up and dry a little bit. Then after that, we're going to go back and fully tighten it back down. So let's get right to doing that and start getting these block-off plates right installed. Alright, and just like that, I have both plates installed with RTV in place. You may actually need shorter bolts for this lower plate. This was something I luckily had bolts on hand for, but it seems that the plate is thinner than the actual EGR was, so that's just something good to keep in mind, that you may need to get shorter ones. They're definitely an M8. I'm not sure what the exact thread pitch is, but it is pretty fine, so something good to keep in mind there. So what we will do is we'll let this RTV set for about an hour, then I'll come back and tighten them down further. And as you guys can see, this definitely took a lot of stuff out of the bay. I'll show you guys all the parts I pulled out in just a minute, but you can see we got way more access here at the fuel injector rail, way more at the back of the head, the top of the valve cover. Cleaning up some of this stuff will definitely go even further, but all in all, it was really easy install. I know sometimes I say things are straightforward and they're easy, but they're kind of big, but this was actually very simple. So here we have everything EGR related that we pulled out. You can take pictures of this. It would be a good idea just in case you have to put it back for any reason, and if you don't live somewhere that smog is really relevant, then you definitely don't need this. Our main goal in doing this here today was, like I said, just to clean up the bay. Some people claim you get horsepower out of this, but I don't think that's true either, and I don't think that was my intention with this. I just wanted to get some of the unnecessary things out of my engine bay, and this should be a nice improvement towards that goal. This seemed like it was a lot smoother sailing than I anticipated, which is a really nice relief. There's not many 15-minute jobs that are actually 15 minutes, but I'm really happy with the outcome on this. I think that the improvement was a lot greater than I was actually expecting it to be. I can fully fit my hand down at the starter now if I ever need to swap that out. Hopefully this video was useful to any of you guys who might be looking to do the same on your car. If you're into that whole, clean engine bay style, or you just want more space to work, it's definitely something I would recommend doing. Thank you as always for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.